2, 1, live.
Welcome. We are here tonight. We're going to talk about the wonderful world of realty. We've got a couple realtors on here. We got one from my hometown in Hampton Roads, and we have another one out of Delaware Beach. So Jen Williams is coming to us from, Jen Jones is coming to us from Delaware, and Jim Williams is coming to us from Hampton Roads. We're going to start out tonight with Jen Jones. She's going to tell us all about how she got into realty and what she had to do to get her license.
Okay, well, I have only been in real estate for 5 years now. I had a 20-year career in environmental sciences, and I've always wanted to do real estate. So I kind of jumped in all at once. And I don't know that I would tell everybody to do it that way, but it's been really good to me. It's been a great career. I think it takes you, a few years to get yourself established in the industry. I think if you're a younger person, you may want to start out on a team or, somehow mentor with somebody. But that's basically, I jumped in 5 years ago and it's been full steam ahead.
And to get your license in Delaware, hours, schooling, class, and a test?
You do. I took through our local community college. I took the Realtor, and you take math, you take the real estate, and you take the law. So you take a three-part course, and then you go for testing.
So for
about 3 months. I want to say it was 3 months.
Okay. So for your environmental, because my wife's an environmental scientist as well.
Oh, yeah.
Did you go to college for that? Did you do any? Okay. So you went to college. Environmental.
Go ahead and tell them where. Go ahead and tell them where you went.
Clemson University. So go Tigers.
Okay. And 20 years of that, you decided, no, real estate.
20 years of that, I thought, this has been great, but I really want to I want to be my own boss.
Great. Great.
You need to be in real estate.
And Jim, now that you're teaching as well, get into your story on how you became a real estate agent.
I was a sales manager with AT&T for 35 years, starting with the Bell system, and throughout the divestiture, trivestiture years, ended up retiring early at 55, took an early out in retirement, and moved into real estate probably because it was in 2009, right at the height of the Great Recession, and it seemed like something to do where we had a lot of people that weren't hiring 55-year-olds. I guess you could say I was unemployable, or it seemed that way for about a year. But I did get into real estate. I'd always been in sales. I felt comfortable with relationship selling. I'd always managed a portfolio of clients, everything from consumers to retail to small business, large business, medium-sized business throughout Hampton Roads. So I knew a lot of people, been on a lot of committees. That's the secret to a lot of it is relationships. Just like it's like selling insurance or anything else, 100% commission-based relationship sales. So it sounds like Jen jumped into the deep end of the pool the minute she got her license.
I did.
I kind of did the same thing. You start calling everybody you know. Sending 11 years ago when I got into it, we didn't have as much social media. So it doesn't cost as much to be an agent, I don't believe now, as it did before, because we did so much print advertising a decade ago, whereas now we've got so much online presence with agents on Zillow and Trulia and Homes.com and all these different platforms that don't cost anything. I've really enjoyed it. After my third year, I decided to get my broker's license because I'd always been in a leadership role in my other career. So it seemed like the likely thing to do to teach, mentor, coach new agents.
Jim,
I did a lot of training at AT&T with new account executives.
Jim, can I ask you a question on that?
Yes, sir.
What you did? And by the way, Chuck, did you notice Jared didn't even introduce us tonight?
I was getting to you when you
when it was
your turn to talk. I was going to talk about you.
You know that I think it's my turn to talk all the time. All right. Jim, I want to. By the way, that's Chuck Wilson. Okay, Jared Britt, Dave Jones. Anyway, Jim, one thing you said, I don't want to forget to ask this. What's it mean when somebody says they're a broker versus a realtor? What's that all about?
It means you've got more experience and that you've taken some additional education and you can take over a managerial type role or be a teacher. It also gives you options if you just want to stay a salesperson, because there are certain things you can do as a broker in the state of Virginia anyway, that you can't do as a salesperson. For example, if I wanted to put my license at more than one company, I can do that as a broker, but as a salesperson, I'm limited to only work for one company.
So it's kind of like a contractor's license in our world, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, all the
All right.
licenses in Virginia are managed by DPOR, Department of Public and Occupational Regulation, just like your contractors, your hairstylists, all those. We have.
So does
regulations.
everybody in your line of work that's not a broker have to work with a broker? There
Yes.
always has to be a broker?
You have to have your license affiliated with a firm, and that firm has to be managed by a principal broker who is all licenses fall under the jurisdiction of that principal broker. So
Okay.
no matter what the size of the firm is, if there's 1,000 agents or 2 agents, there's one principal broker that's responsible for
So
that.
that's like your authority or whatever, so
Yes,
to speak,
sir.
in your industry.
They're responsible for the money if something goes wrong
Okay.
or a lawsuit.
That's a real privilege, Jim.
Yeah, when you're that's where the buck stops.
You got it.
Yeah, we have 2 types of licenses in Virginia, broker or salesperson. And there's 2 types of broker, either your principal broker, which means you are the one managing or in charge or in jurisdiction of the entire firm. And then we have managing brokers who might manage a branch office, a team.
So do you have to be in it so are you in it for a certain amount of time before
Must be in it. You must prove that you've been full-time for at least 3 years of the preceding 5 years, and you have to take some additional education.
Is that the same with you, Jen?
Yeah, I believe Delaware might be 5. You may be able to start 3.
Oh, wow.
So we have a lot of people who get their broker licenses,
Yeah.
but we only have one broker of record, like Jim was saying.
Right.
So I was reading that so like in Virginia, I'm going to go back to it's basically saying a 60-hour pre-licensing course work.
Yes, that's the one I teach.
Okay, and then you got to find your broker, so a guy like you that you work under, or they just have to sponsor you, as it says. Application process. It says something for an application process.
You don't have to be sponsored. You can take the 60-hour pre-licensing class, which is the class I teach. That gives you the credentials to go and sit for the state exam. And once you pass the state exam, you can apply through whatever broker you choose. We have over 500 in Virginia, so there's lots of places to go to work.
So this being the book part of the test,
Yes.
do you think this is something that a high school could actually offer as a senior last semester
Yes,
type thing? That
definitely.
they
And community
come out?
colleges offer it. Yeah, we actually cram. We call our class the one I teach a cram class. So we actually do about a semester's worth of material in 3 weeks. So we really put it out there. It's called a 3-week cram, and it's pretty intense, actually.
Okay.
I like it.
So you still do it and then you teach it too?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead, Chuck.
I have a varied portfolio.
What sort of, describe the types of folks that come into real estate? I mean, it's a pretty broad spectrum, right?
From all walks of life. Get ready.
As you're
I have
teaching
everything
your
from
class,
18-year-olds.
seeing-
I have everything from 18-year-olds that just graduated from high school to 55, 60, 65-year-olds that have been in other careers, transitioning into something they want to do in retirement as something fun to do because they want to go out and show houses and that sort of thing. So I have a lot in Hampton Roads. We have a lot of ex-military people transitioning from the military that are interested in moving over. They have a lot of connections to people coming in to Hampton Roads with the military, and they're pretty successful at bringing those people in and those VA buyers.
Jen,
It's a little bit of everybody.
Did the courses you took, Jen, along the way to get your license prepare you, or can you tell us something that has been a surprise to you in this that you're like, wait a minute, nobody ever told me about this?
I think it'll be interesting if, what Jim has to say, as well as a teacher. I was shocked at how little I was prepared for this career. I passed the test and I thought, wow, I'm going to kill it. And you go and it's complete. You really need to be mentored. You really need a strong broker. You need to have relationships where you go in and you learn this business by doing it. And I think it takes at least a good year or two full time to really learn it. Go under somebody's wing, go on a team, do something.
You mean like the contracts and all the?
Oh yeah, every little thing about buying and selling. It's just, like I said, I have 5 years and I do a good bit of business, and every transaction I learn something new.
Yeah.
So you need a strong relationship with a broker or with some other long-term realtors after you pass the class. Definitely.
It's kind of like being married. You have to have a trust with your broker. If you don't have a trust with that partner, you're going to move to another firm. It's a relationship business, not only with the clients, but also with your broker.
Now, are some of the firms, like the bigger firms, better at like for a beginner that comes into this, let's say an entry-level person, is it better to get like with a bigger firm? Are they going to have more classes and more backup, more? Is there anything to do with that as far as continuing education goes, or any benefit to that? I mean, what would you, if somebody was coming in, would you say to them, hey, go get one of these majors versus a hometown company? Or is there any kind of advice from either one of you for that?
You talking to me or to?
Yeah, go ahead,
Either
Jim.
Yeah, because students ask me all the time, who should I go with? And I'm not really allowed to tell them because it's kind of unethical to be telling students where to go when there's 500. You want them to be able to make their own choice. I suggest they go talk to about 5. A lot of people think that if you go and work for a big company, you're probably going to get a more structured training, and you probably will. They might have a 2-week class once you get to that company where they sit down and go through some contracts. You go on a listing appointment, go on with an appraiser one day, maybe go on a home inspection, all the different facets of things you would do on a daily basis as a realtor. And then other people, they don't want that. They want a one-on-one mentor, coach, somebody they can reach out to day or night and say, hey, help me. What do I say? What do I do? And then go do it. Or either have somebody go with them on their first 5 deals, that sort of thing. It really depends on the person. Somebody like me who's been in sales for 40 years.
Yeah, you have your own style.
I don't want anybody to go with me. I call my broker and say, how do I handle this? And then I'd say, okay, I got it. Go take care of it. Some people want the hand holding. They want a very structured environment. They want to go to the office every day. I never want to go to the office. I want to work from home and send all of my contracts through electronic signature. There's no need to be sitting in an office when you can do everything you could do at the office at home in a much better atmosphere. If you're self-motivated enough to keep yourself at task, that's another issue, is you have to be very self-motivated. So if you're not motivated when you're at home because you're too busy folding the laundry or whatever, instead of prospecting for 6 hours to find clients, then you should go to the office or somewhere where you can find clients.
Pound the pavement, right?
Everybody's a little different. I didn't need that because I'd already been in sales. If you've never been in sales, you might feel like you need more structure.
Yeah, if you're 18 coming in out of high school, I think for sure you would need that. But if you've had a full career, you might already know how to structure your time. It's
funny. Most of the students in my class that are 18, they're coming there because their dad owns the company.
Oh, there
you go.
Boy.
And they skateboard in the parking lot on break.
That's funny.
So Jen,
we have a wide array of
change
age groups and skill sets, and it's not always predictable who's going to pass and who's going to fail.
What were you saying, Chuck?
I was starting with Jen. What are you seeing as far as changes in the way that clients are gathered in this day and age?
With the recent things that are going on in the world?
Well, not just because of the COVID-19, that's got to be changing everything. But
Yeah, that's made things a little different for sure. Yeah, I think technology, like Jim said earlier, is a huge one. I know a lot of people, they buy Zillow leads. They have structured their
Right.
business on spending a lot of money. And I came into it and thought, I tried it for a little while with some people and it just seemed like I was throwing money away. So using these social media tools and using your sphere of influence and the people in life, and maybe at 18, that's not going to be the same as, 45, but using that, pounding the pavement.
Mhm.
There's ways to do it without spending a lot of money. I mean, it certainly costs money to be in real estate and it's 100% commission based. So keep that in mind, but you don't have to spend a lot of money getting into it, which is good.
Yeah, it's very few businesses that you can start up on your own for $2,000 to $3,000 and run your own business. And that's actually what you're doing. You're self-employed 1099, running your own business under the umbrella of someone else's business.
I was
Whether
just
you want, and it's how hard you want to work is how much money you're probably going to make.
it's all about the hustle. I was looking that says Virginia, the average real estate broker makes about, or not broker, but real estate agent, about 50,000 on average. So that would be taking account of these young people coming in, beating the street, and then the older ones with all the connections that are just killing
Keep in mind, 80% of the deals are done by 20% of the people.
Mm-hmm. I always hear that.
We have a ton of agents who are licensed who don't do but 1 or 2 deals a year. They just don't want to give up their license. Some of them don't do any deals. They don't want to give up their license. So then you have other people who are killing it with tons of deals, and whether they're on leads or whether they're working with their sphere of influence, it varies. The optimum, I think, they're looking at right now is to find the 34-year-old client. If you go back and look at birth rates, you'll find that there was a lot of kids born around 1985, 86, 87. That's when the birth rates jumped way up. Don't ask me why. My wife and I had one around that time, but that's the target age right now for home buying, is around the 34 age group.
Very interesting. So for a young kid coming out of high school, I mean, these kids are I know, speaking for myself, they're definitely more technologically advanced than I am. So this is statistics that they could easily be pulling out constantly off the internet, right? To kind of figure out who their target audience is going to be.
Yeah, the issue with the 18-year-olds is they don't have the maturity to handle sometimes the complexity and problems that are associated with these transactions, because they're very few of them, as Jen said, you learn something new on every transaction. And it seems like it should go very smooth. You sign a contract, you have an inspection, you move on to the appraisal, and then you get to closing. Sounds all pretty and neat, but there's lots of little problems along the way. And
hence the
you
mentors.
have to be a problem solver and be able to explain professionally, the options for the buyer or the seller.
So again, a strong mentor.
Trust you.
Excuse me?
I said, so again, definitely having a strong mentor for the young ones coming in.
Chuck, in your question about things changing, a big change has been electronic signature. For years, agents had to run around to clients and scan documents through email and get a wet signature from clients and go back to their house and get something signed. Now we show a house, they call later and say, hey, we want to put in an offer. I can send them the documents. They can electronically sign it, send it back to me. I can send it over to the other agent. I don't have to go back out. So it's less road time. It's really a great process. I mean, you can work from home and work a lot of times in your workout gear, your pajamas, whatever, take care of the dog, the kids, and still get some work done.
What does it mean when I hear this term, and I don't know if it's just local to Delaware, because Jen and I are both from Delaware. But I hear this term, Jen, it's called buyer's agent or seller's agent. What the heck does that mean?
Well, I'm not sure if it's different in Virginia, but here you're represented, the buyer represents the buyer. And the buyer's agent represents the buyer, and the seller's agent represents the seller. In Delaware, you're allowed to do dual agency, which means you are allowed to represent both the buyer and the seller if they both know about it and sign off on it. You're not in Maryland. I don't know about Virginia.
Yes.
Huh.
So you're
you-
double
Virginia is a
dipping.
dual agency
Wow,
state.
you get both sides of the
Double.
pie.
That's the double dip.
Keep in mind, it's like getting a divorce with the same attorney.
Right.
Be very
But-
careful about it.
Yeah, you have to be really careful about that. And many people can't pull that off unless they're very trusted by both clients. Because our big job is to give advice as an agent to a buyer or a seller that you're representing on behalf of your firm, right? So you're there on behalf of that company to give advice and options to a buyer or a seller. So how do you give good advice to one side without disparaging the other side? It's a fine line, and you have to be really careful. Even though it's legal in Virginia, many agents can't cope with it. Many brokers don't want them to do it because it can be a liability and you could end up in court if you were to
Okay.
share information from one side. Maybe somebody's getting a divorce, got financial issues. You share information, they find out later they took a lower offer and they wouldn't have, but you had shared disparaging information. You could end up in court. Yes, it's
Yeah.
legal to do, but
Yeah.
not always the smartest thing to do. Some agents are very trusted and can pull that off.
Yeah, and I think you have to have a feel for people,
Yes.
and sometimes you know that somebody is not going to trust that you're speaking to both sides equally, and you need to let it go. Not everybody does that.
No.
Case when it could work. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Agency is a topic that we spend an entire evening, 4 or 5 hours in class going over how we represent clients, what our fiduciary responsibilities are to a client, what our statutory requirements are in working with the client. Things like we must present all offers. We can't tell them they can't present an offer. And if we receive an offer, we have to present it to our seller. We don't have an option of selecting the offer. We present all offers and they pick the offer that they would like to choose, things like that. Agency is a big deal. We not only teach it in principles in the introductory, but in your continuing education, the whole time you have a license throughout your lifetime, there's always a module on agency and representation because it's so important.
So once you get through the class, you know, whether you do the 3-hour cram class with you or whatever, Jen, start with you. So what's your advice to this? You know, we'll start with a young kid. And then, I mean, I think that's definitely going to change with age because like you both said, as you get older, you know a lot more people. But let's just say someone young coming up, they were able to get through the 3-week cram class, passed it, daddy gave them the $2,000 or whatever happened. They got their license. Now what do they do to get out there and find people? Because they're not going to get, I mean, nobody's going to give them contracts, right? They're going to have to go out there and beat some pavement, right?
Yes. Especially for a younger person who doesn't have that sphere of influence or maybe the, like, I don't know, called emotional intelligence, intelligence
Right.
yet.
Right.
Yeah. The maturity that's really needed to, this is a big purchase for people. You really need to give them your best service. So a lot of people become admins. I don't know how Tim feels about this, but come and work in the business. Come and work and learn those contracts and do the behind the scenes or be a transaction coordinator. You're not really dealing with a client yet, but you really learn the business. And then you can be mentored by an older agent or more experienced agent. And then you can maybe become a buyer's agent or a showing agent and kind of transition yourself over the years is kind of how I think it would have been a smart way to do it. But
I see a lot of firms doing that.
If you're older, it seems smart. Even if you spent 5 years just building your way up until you were ready, could be strong background.
One of the things that we discuss on the show is passion, helping folks find something they have a passion for.
Right.
I think, Jen, you said that you came to this after 20 years doing, what you went to college for, basically. But had you been thinking about doing real estate for a long time prior to doing it?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And the thing that scares you, and I'm sure it would scare anybody, is the 100% commission. When you work a 9 to 5, you have a steady paycheck, you have benefits, here you pay your broker, no matter if you make a sale or not. So it's very intimidating, but there are ways, like we've said, to get into it. Say
that again about the explain that? You pay your broker?
Like, what? So you pay your licensing fees. You pay a month. Usually, you pay a monthly fee to your brokerage for your, your insurances and things like that. So you're paying monthly at least, which is, we pay $89, I think, a month. If I don't make $1, I still pay that money to keep my license and keep my license at the brokerage.
And you have to hang your license somewhere, right?
Correct.
Under a broker somewhere. Okay.
Correct.
So Jen, just to finish that, what causes or gives you a sense of passion about what you're doing now?
I'll tell you about 2 of my latest sales over the last few months have been women. One was a disabled veteran in her 60s, and she was a first-time home buyer. And it was, from beginning to end, it was a fight. But she was a wonderful lady, and I couldn't believe this was her first house, and she was so appreciative. And it just, I would have fought to the death for her to get this house. And those are the deals that I think just, hit it home for me. That it's just, you need somebody on your side to get you through these things. And it just, to get a house in your 60s, your first house. I was so excited for her.
What kind of changes have you seen? Because in my business, and Jim, I'm in the air conditioning business like Jeb. We're both in the same refrigeration, air conditioning stuff. And I've seen this. What kind of changes have you guys seen over the last, let's say 5, 7, maybe 10 years with home inspections? Now there's these big mega home inspection companies, and I don't remember any of that 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. I'd see home inspections occasionally, but now it seems like they're
checking for a lot more.
It's the norm.
It's the norm now, right?
Yes. Are you directing that to me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, most every offer that a buyer puts in is going to request a home inspection, probably within 10 days of signing the contract. Because it's really sort of like that statement, let the buyer beware. And we also have part of our Virginia disclosures that that clients sign, saying that they are advised to do their due diligence to inspect the property for the condition, because the seller's making no representation about the condition of the property. So it's really up to the buyer to go and do their due diligence. And the best way to do that is hire a professional. And the home inspection industry's come a long way. As you said, years ago, it wasn't such a big deal. I know when I got into the business 11 years ago, it was pretty standard to have a home inspection, but I think they've even gotten more rigorous about licensing and that kind of thing for home inspectors. And without it, I think buyers might be in trouble. It makes sense to pay $200 or $300, $400, whatever, to have somebody go through that home with a fine-tooth comb so that you have the best of your knowledge, any flaws, problems, repairs that might need to be needed, and then have an opportunity to request that. I know in our particular area, we have a lot of low-lying area. So we tend to have a lot of moisture issues under the homes that are on crawl space. So it's always good to have somebody going under the house, checking the plumbing, checking for leaks, going up on the roof, all those things that an average buyer might not look for. And I feel it's even gotten more important with a lot of these people who have taken on the job of being a home flipper because they've been watching HGTV and some of these shows on television about flipping, and they're flipping homes, and they really are hiring people who aren't particularly Class A contractors to do some of the work, and some of the work's not up to code. And as a buyer, especially a first-time buyer who doesn't have an eye to look for mold and rot and different things electric things that might not be done properly, it's a good idea to have a professional give you something in writing stating the actual condition of that property before you sign off on it at closing.
And we're actually going to do a show on home inspectors. So if anybody
Awesome.
out there is a great home inspector or knows one, please leave a name on our
name of somebody I think will do it.
Yeah.
Who I've used for 11 years.
Yep, we'd love to have a couple home inspectors from different
Okay.
areas. So if anybody wants to reach out and give us those names, that's awesome.
I'd be happy to.
Great.
Good. Jim, you brought up the HGTV and all
Yeah.
these different shows.
I try not to watch it.
Stress
Well,
it out.
whenever I'm in a doctor's office, someday when we're able
It's
to go
always
back
on
to
to the
doctor's
dentist.
offices, I'll be watching those again. But each of you, what have you seen as far as how the existence of those shows has changed real estate, sales? Let's start with you, Jen.
Sure. It depends on the client if they watch it or they don't. Some it's given an unrealistic expectation to some people. I'm sure
Yes.
she agrees that they see this show that isn't necessarily even true. I mean, we were talking before, I was on an episode of My Lottery Dream Home, and I mean, fun, but it's kind of set up. So, so people think that this is the way things should work. So you have to use it to your advantage, I think, to say, that's not reality. This is reality.
I always laugh at the budgets myself.
Yes, yeah, you can't have a beach house for $100,000.
They didn't include any of the time of the design architects and everybody going through all that for months before they just went and did a quick flip.
You think
I think we also have a trend of owners who want to do their own updates, and they've done a lot of that is from what they've seen on television, and a lot of them are watching YouTube videos of how to put flooring down and change out countertops and put up backsplashes and things like that. And for some clients, it works out great, and sometimes not so much. You can pretty well tell sometimes when somebody's done it themselves who didn't know what they were doing.
Jim, you said earlier, we were talking about, I used to hear 90-10, 10% of the realtors did 90% of the work in every town. That was, I would hear this around. And I know, like in Delaware, the names you always hear, and they're all doing this. But let's speak for a minute to people that are getting in it, whether it's somebody coming out of high school, community college, or even somebody like Jen or yourself that went to a second career. What's the difference? What's the separator? What's the difference maker? What's making that person coming into that industry one of the leaders versus somebody that's just like muddling along? Is it passion for the work? I mean, what is it?
Yeah, sure. Jim, being a teacher, I'm interested to hear what you.
Well, it varies, and it depends on the person and their personality, where they are, and how they go about doing business. So it's kind of important for you to take some time with your broker or another business partner or somebody who can help you kind of devise a plan of what's going to work for you that might be your niche, because you kind of got to find your niche. Somebody younger who doesn't have that maturity we've been talking about, many times they go to work for a broker and they work buyer leads. So that broker is paying Zillow or somebody to get leads. They're going to turn around and hand that. They're probably going to have somebody inside who's not licensed calling on those leads, trying to turn them into a potential client. And then they're going to hand those leads or those potential clients over to that salesperson and have them try to go out and convert them into a buyer or seller for a lesser commission, because those leads cost money. They're not going to pay them the same commission as if they brought their own client. And I see that with a lot of the agents who are younger that are killing it. They're killing it because they're working a lot of leads from Zillow, from Boom. There's another software that's popular called Boomtown. I don't know if y'all use that in Delaware. We also have in our area a military relocation lead program, which is nationwide, called Cardis. Cardis is a relocation company out of Parsippany, New Jersey, and a lot of your franchises are affiliated with Cardis, and they supply USA and Navy federal members leads to our area, and that's a big deal in our area because of the presence of the military. So I find a lot of these younger agents that are really killing it with the volume. It's not on their sphere of influence, it's on leads that have been given them, and typically the price points are a little lower. Our average sale is about $280 in our area. We're not particularly a luxury market, we're a military market. We have a lot of buyers that are veterans or can get VA loans, or they are active military and have a tax-free housing allowance that allows them to buy around that price point. So I see that a lot with the younger agent. They're working a lot of leads. The second career people, they have a passion and they have the relationships to get out and do the networking with the people that they taught in school, the people they taught in school, the kids they coached on baseball. They were in book club together. They were on a nonprofit committee together. They were in PTA together, in the military together, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I think it really depends on your age, where you are. You've got to come up with a business plan that works for you for your niche.
Yeah.
I personally don't want. I'm like you, Jen. I tried the lead thing. It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to take a lesser commission. If you're going to take a lesser commission, you've got to do more deals to make the same amount of money, right? If you can find your own clients and make a bigger commission, you can work half as hard and still make the same money, right?
Very true.
So you gotta have a business plan. Otherwise, you start shooting in the wind, and you don't know. That's how a lot of agents fail. They don't have a plan, and they don't have a plan to execute.
But for the younger agents that are getting those leads, and like you said, they're taking a hit, but that's giving them a lot of experience and a lot of contacts as well. So that seems like a great outlet for them coming in, right?
It's a way of building your business, because once you get that lead and you close them, they're going to, if you stay in touch, they're going to come back to you in 3 years or whatever when they want to move again, or they know somebody that they can refer to you. That'll be a personal lead, and you'll make your full commission.
Yeah, and that's
So
where
it's a
you
way
get
of building your sphere of influence by taking leads when you don't have a sphere of influence.
Right.
What's that, Jen?
Jim was saying something.
And that's how you build your pipeline.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So if you're young, you get these leads, but then they become your trusted people that keep coming back. Mm-hmm.
So what are y'all doing for to keep these leads? Like you said, you got your pipeline. I mean, we're talking birthday cards, anniversary, house. I mean, what are? I mean, I know you don't want to tell everybody all your secrets.
Come on, Jen.
But give them a little, just a little bit.
Giving away.
Yeah, it's all about your database, right? Which I slacked on my first few years, but you have to keep in touch. It is, you hear stories all the time. An agent will say, "My brother just bought a house with someone else," and you think, "How could that happen?" But if you are not constantly telling people you are in real estate and you are there to help them, even if you don't talk about real estate 90% of your conversation, you have to fit it in there, that 10%, because otherwise people, it just goes out. The next time they go to buy a house, you're not top of mind. So,
So last
social media. Yeah, a little bit of everything. Any kind of personal touches. I like to mail 4 times a year, little branded items, things like that. I'm trying to get better about personal touches, calls, texts, birthdays, anniversaries, things like that.
What are you teaching them about this in class? You giving them any pointers?
It's not really part of our curriculum, but I have a tendency to go off curriculum because I kind of want some of them to understand what the reality. I don't want them to be like Jen and get out there and realize I didn't really get what I needed to talk to a client. So sometimes they pick up on it, but I try very hard to give them a sense of reality that this is the principles that you would use as a basic understanding of the business. But when you get out there, it's really going to be about being self-motivated and finding clients. For brokers, it's about finding agents, because the more agents you have, the more deals you're going to do. And for salespeople, it's for finding more customers and clients. It's really just a matter of finding people. It's a numbers game and a relationship business.
So what kind of agents are you looking for being a broker? I mean, what's your go-to?
That's another issue, depending on the type of firm you are. If you're a firm that's a lead firm, some of these firms just want to churn leads, and they spend a ton of money on leads every month. Then they want somebody who's going to chase leads. It also depends on what you want to pay. They've all got different compensation and fee structures. So like I said, in our area, just in Hampton Roads, we have 580 companies to choose from. Keep in mind, this is not your typical interview you would go with for a job. You're actually interviewing them as to whether you want to go and take your business there versus them hiring you, right? It's a turnaround, the opposite of a regular job interview. you should have a business plan in mind of what you're thinking about doing with real estate, and interviewing them to see if this is where you would want to hang your license, and if you feel trusted with the climate and the broker that you're meeting with.
Yeah, I think that's huge. It's something
Yeah.
I didn't quite grasp.
Yeah, you don't get that when you're new. So I try to explain that to the agents. Hey, you need to go to talk to 5 people. If you feel like the climate is right there, you feel it's kind of like adult dating. You go on your first meet for coffee. Do you have a connection or not? If you don't feel a connection with that broker on that first date, you don't want to go for the first kiss, right?
Yeah. Much less to jump in bed,
It's
right?
it's very much like adult dating. It's a relationship thing.
Yeah. I just told a friend who was thinking about getting licensed, and he said, well, will they want me? Or, and he
Yeah,
looking at it.
you have a pulse.
And I said, yeah, they'll take anybody. You need to make sure that you're going to the right place for your career, to build your business. And that's something that people don't it's huge in this business.
Are you still at the same place you started out with, Jen?
Same broker?
So that's interesting. I started with a small, we're at the beach. So I was with a small beach brokerage, and we were absorbed by Keller Williams, which is a huge brokerage. So
Right.
I kind of gotten experience both. I like a little bit about both. It's hard to say. Keller Williams does have excellent training, but it is a huge company, and you are kind of a small fish in a big pond.
They charge a lot of little fees too.
Yeah, you get a good cut, but you pay every cut. Yeah.
Jen,
Yeah.
what would you tell somebody that is looking at coming into real estate, and they say something like, I'd really like to be able to set my own hours?
Well, I was going to say earlier, I think I got off track, that you can't go into this thinking it's an easy career or it's easy money. There's really nothing easy about it. It can be a very wonderful career where you're your own boss, but you need to work yourself silly for the first few years, and you really need to be structured, and you need to, set your own hours. Ooh, I'm finally getting to the point where I can set my own hours. Here I am at 8 o'clock talking to you guys. No. If somebody calls, you better answer. So, and I'm sure Jim knows this too.
Yes.
People work during the day. When are they going to talk to their realtor? They're going to talk to you at night. They have their weekends free. So you don't really set your own hours, unfortunately.
Yeah, I had another agent I was calling on Mother's Day, and he said, today's Mother's Day. And I said, yeah, it's Mother's Day, but I got to ask you this question about this contract.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of with anything though, right? I mean, it's like you said, Jim, you're working while you're doing your laundry, right? So, but that could be at 10 o'clock at night, but you're still working doing your laundry. I mean, that's what they got to understand is the more you put in, like anything, especially with realty, that's what you're going to get out, right?
Yes, you're always got to be prospecting as a salesperson, and as a broker, you're always trying to recruit agents.
Well, I'm married to a realtor, and she sets her own hours 24/7.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if that's by choice
Because
or
when somebody calls, you have to jump.
Yeah.
When they say, I want to put in an offer, that means you got to stop what you're doing. If it's a birthday party or a celebration, and run to your computer and execute an offer. Luckily, nowadays, we can send it off for electronic signature, and you don't have to drive over to their house, right?
They're done.
Yeah.
Many times you can do a lot of it from your phone or your iPad.
I guess
But
you're
it does-
dependent, but you're dependent on other people. Like you're dependent on the mortgage person. You're like working with them. You're dependent on a settlement attorney probably, right? So you're all trying to get to the
a
end.
list of vendors that you prefer probably to work with. It's the client's choice of who they want to do their closing or to do their home inspection, but many times they ask you. So if you're going to have people that you trust that are going to talk to your client the way you'd like for them to be spoken to, and if they disappoint you, you're going to move on to another vendor.
Mhm.
So
Right.
most agents have 2 or 3 closing attorneys or title companies that they prefer. They have several home inspectors they prefer. They have a little network of people that they want their clients to use if possible, because they feel like they can trust them to handle their client properly.
We're always getting calls as an air conditioning company.
Yeah, there you go.
people saying, "Oh, this is going to hold this up. You need to do this right. You know, can you please do this
right now
now?"
and certify that it's working properly.
Exactly.
Right
The
Well, we're
service
not-
will go
now.
through.
Yes.
But we're not going to pay you until it closes.
Did you say get paid?
If we're lucky, we're the
But we
last
don't get
one.
paid till it closes either.
I get a bottle of limoncello from my realtor.
Yes, you do.
Awesome.
Homemade.
Keeps them top of
Yeah,
mind all
what-
the time if you have a lead, right?
We're sitting on a $7,000 bill though until it gets closed.
Got a settlement.
Yeah.
Most closings are about 40 days. I don't know about in Delaware, but the average closing time around here is about 40 days. So
Yeah.
you
We can do
guys,
50
you,
if
you
it's-
guys can probably handle it for a 30-day billing, right?
Yeah.
I'll take 30-day billing all day long.
Dave will finance me. I'll be all right.
Yeah, most agents have a list of contractors, HVAC people, termite and moisture people that they resort to because they trust them. They're going to come back and give them the right report, put it in writing. They can stand by what they say. They're going to treat their client the way they want to be treated.
Very important.
That's important too.
Well, it's a reflection on you too.
Yes, sir. If you refer somebody and they don't treat you right, then it looks like it's not a good reflection of you.
Mm-hmm. So, Jen, what's your sell? We're talking to a kid gets out of school, maybe goes to community college, doesn't know what they want to do. What's your sell for real estate to them? What would you tell them?
I would think they would need to go somewhere for leads.
Yeah.
Okay. What do
They
you
need to
think,
go
Jen?
somewhere where they're going to probably what Jen said, start out as an inside person, maybe qualifying leads and doing some admin stuff and learning a little bit about the business. Then maybe getting some buyer leads. Buyer transactions tend to be a little easier than listing transactions.
What's team mean? I don't all of a
So
sudden.
you're
like 20
opening
years-
up a whole can of worms with
What does that
team.
mean? What's team mean? The Jen Jones team, the Jim
Yeah.
Williams team. What's that mean?
Do you
Team.
do teams in Virginia? Do you?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. There's a team lead who's the rainmaker, we call it at Keller Williams, the person with the leads. You bring on the less experienced agents and they go out and do a lot of the work when you hand them the leads.
And the
that's-
team lead usually does a lot of coaching and mentoring and recruiting for the team. It's almost like having another small business underneath the umbrella of that
It
business.
seems that way because I see some offices might have 4 different teams. Like,
Yeah.
what are these guys boxing each other here?
Well, I think just like in every industry, we have a reduction of brick and mortar business. So I think in the future, instead of a firm opening up branch offices throughout the community, they will just have teams because you don't need brick and mortar anymore, just like we don't need as many retail brick and mortar or corporate office brick and mortar. The same thing is happening with real estate. So our licensing folks have started to put more parameters around what the requirements are of having a team. You have to have an actual business entity license showing up as an LLC or whatever to have a team. And the people on the team have to sign off with DPOR that they are under the supervision of that team lead. We didn't have all these guidelines before, but little by little, we're getting more guidelines. And I think the teams are probably going to start being more of an important entity than the expense of a broker going out and opening up a branch office and having the expense of rent and a
Brick and
lease
mortar.
and water bill and heating and air, and all the expenses of having a brick and mortar office when you don't need it. I actually have a virtual office. If I want to have a meeting, I have a location where I can pay $20 an hour in a business setting and conduct a meeting with a conference room, coffee pot, admin person out front, waiting area. You don't need brick and mortar anymore. Those days are over. And I think with this pandemic, it's even getting more obvious that we don't need all this brick and mortar.
Just need Zoom.
Yeah, there you go.
Love Zoom.
Zoom.
Zoom and electronic signature, we're good to go.
Character traits. I mean, you can talk
Yeah.
about what you need, what people need to learn when they get in the business, but there are certain character traits that I'm sure you look for when people enter the field, and then obviously bad habits that, in the IT field as a manager myself, there are certain people I can know that have bad habits. They're going to be harder work to get out of the bad habits than it is to bring somebody in as a clean slate. So what do you look at for character traits, and what are the bad habits that you would encourage people to try to avoid in developing?
And I'm also a ventriloquist.
Yeah.
Show us your hand. Show us your hand.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would say one trait that I look for is you cannot be sensitive. If you get your feelings hurt very easily, this is not the job for you.
Is there really a job for anybody sensitive these days? I mean, we have a lot of sensitive people in this world.
You cannot be in customer service in any type of, if you can't handle somebody pushing back. And that's something I look for right away. You need to be able to take constructive criticism.
Yeah,
Or
that's a
bad,
good
you know,
one because
not
you do.
constructive criticism.
Yes.
There you go.
No crybabies. Have you mentored, Jen? Are you like, you've been in this for a while now? Are you mentoring anybody?
I'm not. I've tried to find an admin, a personal admin, because we are our own businesses, So basically, I have an S corp now, and I'm looking to have somebody personally work with me, maybe either a buyer agent or an admin. But I'm very controlling. I'm a little OCD about the person, and I don't want to babysit. And I kind of got into a few things where I realized I was babysitting, and it wasn't going to work out. I need somebody who's a strong, doer. I need somebody to match my passion for this. And that's hard to find. If somebody wants to be under you and mentored. So that's something I would keep my eye out for that, though. A lot of agents are looking for young people to
Right.
bring in.
Sounds like a good opportunity for an entry-level person.
Yeah.
If anybody in Rehoboth Beach is listening right now.
Hey, I'm at Del Tech. Don't start
Uh,
tough boss.
That gives me a question. If young folk person is interested in real estate, what should they do? Can they, but just reach out to any real estate company, individuals, and say, what would they say they would want to try to do?
Come do some free work for you, anything.
Yeah, I mean, reach out to somebody at the office. They would put you in touch. I would try a few offices. I'd try a small office, a medium size, a large, that in your community, kind of feel them out. They'll see how well, if they blow you off, then they're probably not going to take you under their wing and take you. But if they bring you in and say, oh, here's the class schedule for our local classes. Here's where you could take, if you have a day job, you can take these night classes, or you could do the 3-week intensive class. See how helpful they are. Like Jim said, see how you click with them. That's relationships. This business is all about relationships. Who you trust.
Leave your feelings at home.
Yeah.
That's right.
So to get in, bottom line, because we're getting near the close here, to get in, to get the license, you're going to select a school. Jen, you selected a school, a night course you went to.
I was working full time, so I took 3 days a week, 4 hours a day, 4 hours at night, 2 to 3 days a week, I think, for 3 months.
And you took 3 tests in 3 areas. And how about if you didn't pass one of those tests, could you retake it?
You could. It's just the big test, the national test, and the law or the state test. I think you can take them 3 times and fail them twice, and then you have to take the class over again.
Oh, boy.
So.
In Virginia, you can take it as many times as you want, and they'll keep taking your money.
That's right. It's all about the money. Virginia don't care.
They're fine if you don't pass it. You just pay more money and take it again.
They may have just changed it in Delaware as well. That I say that.
Remember, a lot of this is about making money.
Right. And it seems, and Jim, again, why can't we get some of these classes at high school? I mean, that's when kids, really can absorb that book part, it seems like. For me, I know, like, my master's couple licenses I had to take, like, right now, that'd be a lot harder with kids and, just the whole studying part. Seems like if you just get that over and done with in high school before you get out, and then go do your mentoring and do all that other stuff y'all are talking about. Maybe even the broker will pay your $89 or whatever it is while you're doing all the legwork for them.
Right.
Oh, well, and also a brokerage might pay for you to get licensed.
That was a question I had.
Yeah, there's a few that you can go and, you'll hang your license with them, but they will pay for you to take the class, I believe is how it works. Or they take it out of your first few deals or something like that. So there's ways that you can get in before you have to really even be licensed. Like we said, go be an admin, go do some transaction coordination. Anybody can do that.
Okay, great. Is there anything else y'all want to reach out to anybody who's looking, interested, realtor? Any advice? Anything you want to say before we sign off here?
I would go to 5 different companies, like she said, a small, a large, and a medium, and find out, what the climate is, and try to determine who I felt like I had a connection with and what they were. I'd want them to actually show me their training, not just tell me they're number one and what their training program is. I want them to show me what the plan was.
Sounds great.
Training was, because the training is such a huge thing when you first start.
Right. Sounds to me also, Jim, like there's some growth in that industry. Like you could come in as an agent, become a broker, maybe get into general management in a big company. It sounds like there's some growth opportunities.
Or you could start your own.
Yeah, or go out and start your own. Yeah.
It's great. We appreciate y'all's time. Anybody at home, if you want to be a realtor, or if you know anybody looking, any kids, whatever, tell them to watch our link. We had some great guests on here tonight, coming out of Delaware and Virginia. So a lot of good stuff here. So next week we are going to do driver, UPS, FedEx. I got a UPS driver. We're looking for FedEx, a DHL. We want to get y'all right in the mix and battle it out like Ford versus Chevy. So anybody,
they're too busy delivering right now.
They are very busy right now.
Maybe we can grab an Amazon driver.
Extremely. Yeah, an Amazon driver. But definitely we're looking for the guys that are out here working nonstop. So that's what we're doing next week. Appreciate the. And we are gone.